Hello and thank you for joining us on Behind the Bins. I'm Kate.
And I'm Tim, and we're aiming to lift the lid on the world of waste.
So every episode we're going to pose a question to our listeners and guests and give you a bit of an insight into the inner working of the waste industry.
The question today is, what if I can't manage to put my bin out?
So we know that all local authorities, as far as I know, offer a service for residents that can't manage to put their own bin out. It's often called an assisted collection. Some local authorities have their own terminology for that: A-cards, pull-outs, assisted pulls. But basically, the premise being, if someone can't manage their own bins, that the waste collectors will take the bins out for them. And I think it's fairly modern in terms of, if we go back a few decades, no one was putting the bins on the curbside because they were, the metal bins.
Or sacks.
Or sacks.
Which are as heavy as you want to make them. So yes, I think that's the big difference in the last couple of decades, isn't it? We've moved away from that to big bins.
And also more legislation around reasonable adjustments in lots of different ways. So yeah, for people who can't manage, then there is a service there available, but I don't know how people find out about that. I don't know how easy it is for people to know that that's an option. It's certainly not something I was aware of until I was working in the industry.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that's really obvious to us because we work with bins every day and it's not necessarily obvious to everybody else. So yeah, I think the usual, it's on the website, is probably a big part of the answer, but of course that doesn't get to everybody. I suspect that social workers and other sort of charity bodies and stuff that are giving support to people with disabilities or the elderly are promoting that, but I don't think it's a particularly organised campaign of telling people about it. Mm-hmm. I also know that the bin men will often put people forward if they're on the ground, they can see that someone needs the service or is struggling. That's another route by which the assisted collection might be applied for, if you like.
And we've seen that with our in-cab system, that they'll actually have options for the crews to say, we think this address needs some support. I think there's probably loads of people that just have family members coming round once a week to put the bins out for them, just because they don't know that it is something that they can get support with.
Now, I've done a little bit of analysis in the data we've got in our systems from 70 odd councils. How many people, as a percentage or a ratio, do you think have the assisted collection service?
I think that's going to massively depend on the area, isn't it? You've got sort of seaside resorts that are going to have a much older demographic that maybe have more. As a percentage of the whole population, let's say 4%?
That's a pretty good guess, actually. On average, it was 3.3%, but there's a huge variety. A couple of councils in my sample had less than 1%. Some had more than 10%. But probably the most interesting bit in the data is that it does not in any way follow the patterns of older demographic, rural versus urban. That, in my data, doesn't appear to be a factor at all.
Interesting. So I wonder whether part of that is down to how each local authority qualifies it, because we know there's massive differences between how eligibility is scored, what proof is required. Some local authorities will require a document from a doctor or a social worker or some kind of professional. Others will just take your word for it. And if you say, I need it, then they will accept that and give you the support. So perhaps that's a bigger factor.
Yes, and I think another factor might simply be that those authorities that I've looked at don't have particularly good data. When you apply for an assisted collection, although it's based on your personal circumstances, the assisted collection flag sits on the house, or the bin. So we're telling the waste collectors at this house that an assisted collection is needed. If your data management isn't good, then that could stay on that house for decades, long after the house has been sold and people have moved on and it's no longer actually applicable. So I think the data cleanse or the data quality might also be a big part of this.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I think, how do you find out that someone no longer needs it? That often comes from the refuse collectors as well. Them saying, this house is now empty, someone else has moved in. And again, they could record that on the in-cab, but what's happening to that data then when it gets to the back office, is someone dealing with that. I know some authorities will send out review letters every couple of years, and if you don't respond saying that you still need it, they'll be taken off. But there's quite a lot of admin around that not everyone is really staying on top of.
Just on the eligibility thing, one of the other challenges is not just that we apply the flag to the house, but they're actually trying to prove a negative in a lot of cases. So the fact that I am not able to put my bin out, I can prove that through a doctor's letter or through, showing my age or whatever. But actually, most of the policies around proving that there's nobody at the house who is able-bodied. So actually, me proving my disability doesn't help if I'm surrounded by fit and able teenagers who could do the job for me, and that's very difficult to prove. For me, you've touched on one of the interesting challenges there. You've got the cost of delivering the assisted collection service, and we'll come to that in a minute because, spoiler alert, it's enormous, versus the cost of actually gatekeeping the service, and that's a financial cost, an admin cost, but also a social cost in that you might actually put people off applying for a service that they really need. So how do you balance those two things? If you have far more people using the service, it's going to cost you more. If you gatekeep it too tightly, you're going to spend a lot of money on admin and not necessarily give the right service to the right people.
So do we know what it does cost? Have we got anything in the data that tells us an average cost of an assisted collection?
Well, you have to make some assumptions, and I've made quite conservative ones. But if you take into account the extra time it takes to go and get the bin, so a lifter will take a bin up and down in around 15 seconds, bit of time to put it on the back and so on, but it's a pretty quick process. If you've now got to open a garden gate, go down the path, drag the bin out, put it on, and then take it back again, it's a significantly longer job. And we know from modelling this that in some places it's minutes, not seconds. So there's definitely an extra cost in terms of the labour, but that also knocks on to other costs as well. So my estimate, when you roll it all up in the data, and I'd be really happy to explore this with anybody who wants to sort of engage on the LinkedIn channel and so on, for me it comes to about half of the complete cost of delivering the waste collection service if you have an assisted collection. So if we say roughly £80 a year for waste collection, it's about half of that again for you to have an assisted collection.
So doing like 1.5 times the cost.
Yeah, so that's an individual level. Looking at it at individual council levels, it's at least tens of thousands a year. In some of the authorities I looked at, some of the larger ones and some of the ones with a higher percentage, it was over £200,000 a year to provide that assisted collection service. Also, in addition to that, most of those authorities could actually, on the data that I sampled, run one or two fewer collection vehicles. And that's an enormous cost, probably about £250,000 a year to run a collection vehicle. So if you take a round or two off, the savings get even bigger. So yes, it's an expensive thing to do.
I know something you've floated in the past is the idea of people paying to have an assisted collection. So maybe I'm going to forget when my bin day is, I'm busy, I work nights, whatever the reason is, I don't want to have to remember to put my bin out. Can I pay to have that service, which would then obviously offset the cost of providing it to those that needed it? Is that something that any local authorities have sort of picked up on, or?
No, people recoil in horror when I mention it, and I think it's possibly the best idea I've ever had. I think the nervousness people have is, we haven't got the resource to do it, it's incredibly expensive. But the mindset is actually, well, this is a service that people might want to actually pay for, which actually means you can get more resources, employ more people, provide a better service, and actually maybe more than cover the costs. So yeah, I think the technology exists to do it. Being able to apply for something online or through through the call center or whatever, quite easy to do. Pay for it online, really easy to do. So yes, those relatively affluent, overweight, middle-aged men, can't think who I'm thinking of, might really be up for paying 50 quid a year to have their bin collected every week. I think the other downside is that if you are specifically paying for that service, you're going to expect that service every single week, no missed bins and all that sort of stuff. So it potentially moves the relationship into a rather more supplier customer one than councils currently have with their residents.
Next up, we've got Becca from Cardiff to talk to us about the assisted collection process there.
We're joined today by Becca Phillips, who is Digital and Projects Manager for Waste Services at Cardiff Council. Hello, Becca.
Hello, Tim. Hello, Kate. Lovely to see you again.
It's great to have you. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about, how assisted collections are a part of the service at Cardiff?
Yes, of course. We have done assisted collections since I started in the council when it was just black bins. We've now expanded across all of our different waste services, so food, residual, garden waste, recycling, glass now. Tends to work really well, but we have had problems in the last few years with food and glass collections. We operate, it's called a slave bin system, where the bin crews go off with a big normal household bin and put the little caddies within it, and they can go off a couple of streets away from the bin lorry. And that means that they don't have the immediate feedback of the in-cab telling them where an assisted lift is. And that's where we can miss them, because they can't see those caddies necessarily. And so we tend to miss more of those assisted lifts, which is where it's difficult, because we should be offering those people a better service, if anything, but we can end up, unfortunately, offering them a slightly worse one simply because we don't see them. So we have done a few things to try and rectify that. We have priority collections now, which is like an assisted collection plus. So these are ones that we often miss, and that will flag up on the in-cab system for them and force them to confirm that they've done it. We also phone the crews, which is not a digital solution, is it? But they do ring them. We're trying to look at technology at the moment that will alert the crews when they're out. It sounds counterproductive, but we used to ask the crews to confirm every single assisted lift one by one, but it becomes kind of white noise to them. It's like what they call sign blindness with health and safety signs. You just start ignoring it, so it's just like yeah. So we've changed that now so that they only have to confirm priority calls and ones that are brand new. So they have 4 weeks to get used to a new collection, and then it just becomes normal.
Yeah, I think there is certainly that desire to give them all the information. We have a problem with assistants getting missed. Let's make sure we're throwing everything at it. But as you say, it becomes white noise. And then the one that was missed on the estate of bungalows that are almost all assisted, you've got no way of escalating that any further then, have you? So, but yeah, that's sort of our recommendation as well, that
yes,
the regular ones, just obviously they need the information on there, but you've got to have that escalation option.
You mentioned that thing where you give them an advance notice for new assisted collections, so 4 weeks. And I think that works quite well because it establishes that as new, which is a big cause of miscollections as a new assist, because it looks like the bin's just not out if the crew don't know it's an assist. And it's the worst time to miss the bin, isn't it, when you're just giving somebody an assisted collection? So I think that highlighting a new one is really powerful, but it also then embeds it in the mind of the person, because the reality is, with all the tech in the world, most of this information is still in someone's head, minute by minute. They're just remembering what they did last time. So if you can get that into their mind, that's an effective way to do it.
We actually try to keep at least one person on the crew all the time as well, so that they know that round the people they need to look after.
So yeah, I mean, speaking of the crew sort of getting to know the residents, is there any sort of just really informally, like level of welfare checks for those assisted residents, or are the crews feeding back to you that, we haven't seen this person in a while, or we think this person needs an assisted collection? Because obviously those are the guys that are out on the front line, aren't they? And we talked the other day about the fact, I don't know that I would have known that assisted collection was an option, and there's probably loads of people who are struggling and not knowing that the local authority might help them. So yeah, what part do the crews play in all that?
If they notice that somebody is having issues, then they will report it to the supervisors, and they will raise it in the back office. Mm-hmm. They do offer it to people if they see they're obviously struggling. They generally care about people.
I mean, it's literally like minutes each week, isn't it? So there's not an awful lot of time that they're spending there, but they're probably going to be, with the residents more than anyone else in the department is.
But they will definitely say, oh, I think this person needs an assisted lift, or this person's clearly elderly and struggling, and I've seen them. But yeah, as you said, like, it's whether they see them for those 2 minutes struggling to put the bins out, or if there just isn't one there. I think they enjoy the fact that they can look after people in that way.
I think that's often missed, isn't it, about the waste crews, and actually they're not office-bound people. They're generally not, technically driven. They're just people. And there's a really good resource there. And if we build systems that actually accommodate that and encourage it rather than just trying to systemize everything out, then that definitely works better.
They definitely they enjoy that kind of feedback loop of like they can report something and then they see something happening, or like that result from their actions.
Yeah, and I think that using the in-cab technology as a way of communication between the crews and the back office, and them having trust that you act on the information, not just for assisted collections, but in lots of different ways. That's really key, isn't it? That they're more likely to tell you about things if they think that you're listening and doing something about it. So yeah, I think picking it up at the other end is really key, isn't it? So in terms of the process for like new assisted customers, what does that look like? Because I know everyone seems to have slightly different eligibility criteria, different levels of proof that's required. Do you ever reject applications? What does that look like?
So at the moment, it is either the crews report it, as we've just said, or they contact our call centre, Connect Cardiff. If they call that way, it raises what we would call a service request within the system. That goes to our strategy team, and they will send out a human being to do a doorstep discussion with the person. Our eligibility criteria is basically that they can't take out their own bins and that they don't have another person in the house or a carer that can do that for them. Obviously physical disabilities, but then there can be invisible disabilities where somebody might have the strength to get up and answer the door and do something, but they might not be able to move their bins every week. They might struggle with depression or something. What we do offer sometimes is, instead of an assisted lift, we will swap them to a bag collection so that it's easier for them to move. Once our strategy team have spoken to them, then we also do a risk assessment and check that it's safe for our crews. We do, because this is us, we do offer assisted deliveries as well. So sometimes people have to go to what we call our hubs or libraries and so forth to pick up new bags, new rolls and so forth. If they're on an assisted collection, then it will allow them to order these things through the website.
And those will be delivered to the house?
Yes, and we have an assisted delivery one as well, which is where they can put their bins out, but maybe they're agoraphobic or something, and so they wouldn't be happy to go and actually collect things, and we'll allow those people to have a delivery as well.
I remember it was quite a few years ago, I can't remember what authority it was. There was somewhere and they'd got a guy who was blind so he could put his bins out himself, but he couldn't then find where the bins were to bring them back in. And I hadn't thought about that before. And also that it was important that the colours were back in the right order because he knew which one was on the left and the right, etc. So yeah, we sort of imagine this, someone frail or weak that can't move the bin, but there's lots of different kind of reasons that they might need that.
In general terms, are you seeing more assisted collections over time? Is it becoming a bigger part of the service?
It becomes more used when we promote it. So if we do social media campaigns and so forth, then a lot of people will sign up.
It's a tension, isn't it? Because, obviously the assisted collection service is, it's a cost in terms of time and resource. So on the one hand, operationally, you don't want those numbers to go up, but your main reason to exist is to provide the service to the residents. So you do want to make sure that everybody who should have one can get one. So it's a trade-off, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. We do kind of try to mitigate that by every couple of years we send out a letter to review it with people. Like, do you still need this assisted lift? And you need to contact us to maintain it.
Thank you for your time, Becca. I appreciate you joining us talking all things assisted collection. It's been really interesting. And I think the fact that you guys go out to the residents, that's probably not that common actually, but I think that human element is really important for these kind of services.
Our strategy people are the kind of people that like to do that. They're, the green, positive humans who like to look after their fellow beings.
Yeah, thank you very much. So to answer the question, what happens if I can't manage to put my own bins out? I think the answer is speak to the local authority. I don't know any local authorities that don't provide assisted collection as a service. And actually, following on from that interview, I spoke to Becca and she did say that the crews do also try and signpost and refer people on if they've got other concerns. So potentially like hoarding or people who are struggling. So yeah, I think the local authority are providing more than just the assisted collection with the crews on the ground.
So go online, ring your council or talk to the bin man.
Yep. So Tim, what's caught your eye this week?
So what caught my eye this week was the price of a skip. We had a tidy up in the office and decided to get a skip to get rid of the stuff. Now bearing in mind, we don't have a massive office. Mm-hmm. We do have quite a lot of crap as it turns out. So I rang up to order a skip and, well, fun fact, what do you think the skip cost?
How big a skip are we talking? Like the sort of size that would sit on the front of your drive? Or
a bit bigger than that, but
a
big skip, but not like an industrial thing, just a slightly bigger version of that.
A couple of £100?
That's kind of what I was thinking. It was actually just shy of 600 quid. But then the best bit was, he asked me what was going to go in it, and I just said, general office stuff, no glass, no monitors, and but just the general stuff around office, bits of office furniture. And he said, any chairs? Which seemed like an odd question, but it turns out that if you are putting any sort of upholstered chair in the skip, there's an extra charge of £20 per chair, which would have pretty much doubled the price of the skip.
Oh my God.
Because they then take them out and dispose of them separately.
Because it's pops.
Because of pops.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what caught my eye this week.
Well, mine is sort of related, actually, completely unplanned. It's also skip related. I saw an article about a couple who had found some paintings in a skip and taken them home, put them on the wall, and then after a couple of years did a bit of research about the artist, found out that he was quite famous and ended up selling the paintings for £16,000 at auction.
They could almost have afforded a skip from my office.
But I thought that was quite interesting because obviously you're not really allowed to take things out of skips.
No.
Once something is designated waste, it remains waste. So yeah, I thought it was quite interesting that they made quite a good sum of money out of something that wasn't legally theirs.
But whose legally was it? If you've put it in a skip, at what point does the ownership of the stuff in the skip transfer from you to somebody else, the skip company?
Yeah, I don't know. So it'd be interesting, maybe there'll be a lawsuit from the original owners or the skip company to recover the money. Yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. I guess if you've got anything that you want to share about today's episode, if you've got any thoughts or questions, get in touch. You can find us both on LinkedIn. We've got the Behind the Bins community, and you can also email us at behindthebins@bartekmunicipal.com.
Write in and tell us what you have found in skips. Next time, we'll be asking, who decides my bin day?
We've got a guest from another local authority to join us on that one, so hopefully we'll see you there.
See you
Thanks
then.
for listening.